call crackled. A suspicious vehicle on Sycamore Drive. Officer Rick Snyder smirked. After 15 years, he knew suspicious in this part of town meant one thing. Someone was where they weren't supposed to be. He swung his cruiser into the lot, bathing a charcoal Chevy Tahoe in the stark white of his headlights. He killed the engine and moved with a deliberate, heavy slowness, a physical announcement of authority before a single word was spoken. Two sharp raps on the driver's side window echoed in the silence. The glass slid down just enough to reveal a black woman in a tailored business blazer. She didn't flinch. Her eyes, calm and steady, met his, and the complete absence of fear was like sandpaper on his nerves. No fear, he registered. She's played this game before. License and registration, Snyder said, his voice flat. Let's have them. Her voice was as crisp and unruffled as her clothes. Good evening, officer. Could you tell me the reason for this stop? A lawyer in the making. The reason is I'm telling you to, he said, his patience already gone. Now. Her movements were measured, economical, no fumbling, no nervous energy. It wasn't the behavior of someone trying to be compliant. To Snyder, it was a quiet act of defiance. His eyes swept the Tahoe's interior. Immaculate. Not a stray paper or coffee cup. It was too clean, the kind of sterile space a person maintains when they have things to hide. She produced a Virginia driver's license. Amara Sterling. Virginia? Snyder's voice dripped with manufactured suspicion. That's a long way from North Carolina. What's your business here, Miss Sterling? I'm a researcher, she replied, her tone perfectly even. I'm here on a temporary assignment. A researcher, he repeated, stretching the word out like a cheap lie. And I suppose your research involves sitting alone in a dark parking lot? I needed a quiet place to review my note, she said. The signal is strong here. That was it. The whole setup stank. The perfect answers, the unnerving calm, the spotless vehicle. It was an act. His gut screamed that she was a liar, and his pride bristled at the idea that she thought she was smart enough to get away with it. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle. She held his gaze for a beat, and he saw a flicker of emotion in her eyes. It wasn't fear. It was something closer to disappointment. She unbuckled her seatbelt. As you wish. She stood beside the SUV, poised and silent, as Snyder keyed his radio for backup. He wasn't an idiot. A woman this composed was a woman with a plan, and people with plans were dangerous. As he waited, he watched her. She didn't fidget. She just stood there, her hands loosely at her sides, observing him as if he were the one being evaluated. The sight made the back of his neck burn. Just then, a second cruiser crunched over the gravel. His partner, Dale Bishop, was here. The real pressure was about to begin. As Snyder walked toward her again, he felt a grim surge of satisfaction. The mask was about to crack. Dale Bishop climbed out of his car with a lazy swagger, popping his gum. He did a slow walk around Amara, looking her up and down like a piece of faulty machinery before turning to his partner. So, Rick, he began, his voice loud in the quiet lot. What's the holdup? Got a situation here? Snyder held up the Virginia license. Says her name's Amara Sterling. Claims she's a researcher on assignment. Bishop took the ID, giving it a cursory glance before looking back at her. Amara, huh? He said, pointedly using her first name. He tossed the license back to Snyder. Tell you what, Amara, I don't know what kind of research pays for a brand new Tahoe, but the government must be handing out some serious cash these days. The insult, delivered with a smug grin, hung in the humid air. Her expression remained a perfect blank. Is there a problem with my vehicle, officer? She asked, her voice dangerously neutral. We'll be the judge of that, Bishop snapped, the folksy act evaporating. He leaned in toward Snyder. She's got an answer for everything. I don't like it. You run her yet? Just did, Snyder said, pulling up the screen on his patrol tablet and staring at the results in disbelief. No flags, no priors, no warrants. He lowered the device, a knot of frustration tightening in his stomach. How, he thought, a woman like her, in a car this clean, in this neighborhood? There's always something. She's clean, he said through his teeth. Clean? Bishop scoffed. Nobody's clean. He turned back to Amara, his voice a low mockery of authority. All right, let's try this again. What are you researching? And don't feed us some garbage about market trends. I have already given you my statement, officer, she said, her calm unwavering. No. You've given us a story, Snyder interjected, stepping forward to crowd her space. And frankly, it's a bad one. So I'm going to search your vehicle." "On what grounds?" she asked, her eyes locking onto his. Snyder felt a jolt of adrenaline. This was the moment of truth. "On the grounds that you're a suspicious person in a suspicious vehicle in a place you don't belong," he bluffed, inventing his justification on the spot. "That's all the grounds I need." A deep, profound weariness settled in Amara's eyes. It was a look that communicated she had seen this tired, predictable scene play out 100 times before. She gave a single sharp nod. "The rear hatch is unlocked." Bishop swung the Tahoe's hatch open with a theatrical flourish and began his search. He wasn't looking for anything. He was putting on a show. He unzipped an empty laptop case and contemptuously tossed it onto the dusty pavement. He picked up a small bag of trail mix, shook it next to his ear, then let it slip through his fingers. "Whoops," he said with a smirk as the contents scattered across the floor of the trunk. He made no move to clean it up. Snyder ignored him, his own eyes scanning the pristine interior. Then he saw it. A small black Velcro square adhered to the side paneling. Well, what do we have here?" he said, pointing dramatically. "Looks like a mounting point for a GPS unit." "Who you been tracking, Amara?" Her head snapped toward him, her calm demeanor vanishing, replaced by eyes of cold steel. "Officer," she said, her voice low and dangerous, "I strongly suggest you stop what you're doing. Right now." The command in her voice was so absolute it almost gave him pause. But Snyder's pride was already in too deep. "I don't think so," he sneered, taking a step closer. "I think you're fresh out of lies. Turn around. Put your hands on the hood of the car." For a long second, she just stared at him, the silence crackling with tension. Then, with a slow, deliberate grace that felt like an insult, she turned and placed her hands flat on the hood. Bishop moved in behind her to begin the pat-down, a greasy smile on his face. Just as his hands were about to touch the fabric of her blazer, she spoke. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the humid night air like a shard of glass. "Left, inside pocket." Bishop froze, his hands hovering inches from her back. She didn't turn her head. "I said left inside pocket, and I advise you to be extremely careful." Bishop shot a look at Snyder, his smug confidence suddenly evaporating, replaced by a flicker of genuine uncertainty. Snyder gave him a sharp, impatient nod. "Get on with it." He reached into her blazer pocket as if expecting to be bitten. He pulled out a black leather wallet. He flipped it open. Under the beam of his flashlight, the golden eagle of the Department of Justice seemed to ignite. Below it, 3 bold letters, FBI. "Oh, hell no," Bishop whispered, stumbling back as if the wallet were radioactive. Snyder snatched it from him, his heart suddenly hammering against his ribs. The badge felt heavy, solid, real. He forced his eyes to read the credentials below it, his blood running cold. Special Agent Amara Sterling, Transnational Crime Division. She turned around slowly, her face an unreadable mask of cold fury. Her eyes bored into Snyder's. "You and your partner," she said, her voice quiet but carrying the weight of a guillotine, "have just compromised an 8-month federal investigation into an international arms trafficking syndicate." She took a step forward and the professional mask cracked, revealing the warrior beneath. "Listen to me," she growled, her voice dropping to a low, furious register. "Because of your pathetic little power trip, Operation Sundown is blowing up in my face as we speak. You didn't just compromise my cover. You may have just signed the death warrant for other federal agents." Her eyes burned into theirs. "Your careers, believe me, they are the absolute least of my concerns right now. But I promise you both, when this is done, I will personally walk you to the unemployment line. Now get back to your vehicle and do not move. Am I understood?" They both gave a jerky, terrified nod, rendered speechless. Agent Sterling spun on her heel and moved to the back of her Tahoe. She popped a hidden latch in the floor, revealing a false compartment. Inside lay a compact plate carrier, pistol magazines, a radio earpiece, and a small, folded tactical drone. The 2 cops watched in stunned silence as the researcher began methodically gearing up for war. She snapped the earpiece into her ear and tapped it. "Watchtower, this is Oracle. Do you copy?" A distorted voice, calm and clear, crackled in the night, loud enough for both cops to hear. "Solid copy, Oracle. We have eyes on you. We also have eyes on the package. He's mobile." "Understood," Sterling said, slamming a fresh magazine into her service pistol. The metallic clack was deafening. "Is the secondary asset in position?" Affirmative. Asset is moving to intercept. You are the tip of the spear. We move on your word. Call the play. As Sterling was about to respond, a silver Toyota Camry with tinted windows pulled out from behind a darkened warehouse. Its headlights were off. There's the play, Sterling whispered, her gaze fixed on the car. She tapped her earpiece again. Watchtower, target is in a silver Camry, no lights, moving toward the south exit. I'm engaging. Tell the asset to hold his position unless I'm compromised. Go time is now. She drew her weapon, holding it low and ready at her side. She threw one last, withering glance at the two local cops. Stay here. Don't talk. Don't even breathe too loud. My Overwatch team has you in their sights. If you so much as twitch, they will consider you part of the problem. And with that, Special Agent Amara Sterling melted into the shadows, a ghost moving with lethal purpose toward the slow-rolling sedan. Snyder and Bishop stood frozen in the parking lot, the air thick with the consequences of their actions. The world they knew, a world where they held all the power, had just imploded. They weren't cops anymore. They were just two fools who had kicked a hornet's nest and were about to get stung. Officers! A voice cut through the chaos. A man in a perfectly tailored suit approached them, his expression a mask of cold fury. I'm Deputy Director Croft. Your shift is over. You're coming with me. He jerked his head toward a black Suburban, the open door waiting like the entrance to a tomb. It was not a suggestion. They walked, stiff-legged, past federal agents who moved around them as if they were invisible. They were ghosts already. An agent slammed the heavy truck door behind them, and the sound was a final, damning verdict. The ride was silent, the air in the Suburban cold and sterile. Croft didn't look at them. He just drove, heading onto the interstate, away from their small-town precinct and toward a fate they couldn't imagine. After miles of agonizing silence, Croft's voice finally broke the quiet, calm and sharp as a scalpel. Your service records paint a picture of mediocrity, he said, his eyes fixed on the road. 15 years of just showing up, but the files don't show the rot. They don't capture the cheap satisfaction you get from putting your boot on the neck of someone you've decided doesn't belong. His eyes met theirs in the rearview mirror, and they were as hard as granite. You didn't just pull over a citizen tonight. You blundered into the final hours of Operation Sundown, a federal task force 18 months in the making. The man in custody connects two international syndicates. Agent Sterling spent 8 months risking her life to get him. A risk you sent through the roof because a black woman had the audacity not to tremble when you puffed out your chest. The Suburban descended into a concrete bunker of a garage. Croft led them to a windowless room containing only a steel table and 3 chairs. He dropped a thin folder on the table. It landed with a sound like a gavel. Here are your options, Croft said, his voice leaving no room for negotiation. Option A, I charge you both with felony obstruction of a federal investigation. You'll lose your pensions, you'll do hard time, and your faces will be a cautionary tale on the nightly news. Your lives are over. He paused, letting the weight of the words crush them. Or, option B, he slid 2 single-page documents across the table. Your immediate and unconditional resignations. You sign these, and you walk away. Your part in this gets buried. You cease to exist in law enforcement. You just disappear. He pushed 2 pens toward them. Decide. You have 1 minute. Bishop, sweating and shaking, grabbed a pen and scribbled a signature that was barely a line. Snyder stared at the paper. His entire career, every choice, every power trip had led to this moment. A humiliating silent end in a concrete box. He took the pen. The life he knew bled out through the tip of it. You chose wisely, Croft said, collecting the signed papers. He knocked once. The door opened. Escort them out. They were marched down a hall and pushed through a steel door into a dark, piss-stinking alley. The door slammed shut, the sound final. Their power, their identity, their careers, all of it, gone. As they stood there, stripped of everything, a charcoal Chevy Tahoe drove down the street at the end of the alley. The glow of a phone screen illuminated Agent Sterling's face. She was on a call, her expression focused, already moving on to the next target. She didn't even look their way. They were already nothing.